ERA Global is the place, it's the destination. If you're looking to distribute your product, if you're trying to find a way to scale and get global impact and get global reach for your product, you have to be here. This event can change your life. So don't miss it. Make sure you come here. And guys, come to the show. Don't miss it. This is the place to be.
Today's topic is really on branded content and how we're changing the effects of what's going on in the market. What we've seen over the last couple of years, if you've been to one of these, most recently we talked a lot about AI. If you're not seeing AI in your content streams right now, then you just don't realize you're seeing AI in your content streams because it's everywhere. What we hope to get out of these sessions is a little bit of deeper insight into where the market's going and just kind of open a conversation. All the way on this end, we have Dave Tiberia. Dave is the VP of Performance Marketing and Analytics for Blackstone, and now for Weber Blackstone, which Weber and Blackstone just merged. Dave, I've known him very well. We worked together side by side for 17 years.
Wow,
around there.
Great.
And now he's off on a brand new journey of how to navigate a massive company across global spectrum of marketing and elements with Blackstone Weber. We've got Sal Fialo. Sal's VP of Sales and Planning and Operations for Capital Brands. You may have heard of a few of his products along the way. He's been involved with not only the current products that he's dealing with NutriBullet and the like. He also has a history and background with Shark, Ninja, and should be able to give some pretty good insight about where things have been and where they are going. To my right, Frederic, Marketing and Product Sourcing Director for Best of TV. Has done, when it comes to the international footprint and the international outlook, I think you've got more insight than the rest of some of the panels, so we're really looking forward to everything we come in that side of it. And then finally, Dwayne Andrews. Dwayne's with the president of Phoenix Productions. His backstory goes all the way back to Time Life, doing a lot of building brands around that side of it, music brands, as well as tons of different beauty brands, any kind of product you might imagine. Dwayne has probably been involved with it. I'm Andy Latimer. I am the CEO of Bluewater Media. We handle everything vertically integrated from creative, media, and all the way through. So I think we're at a crossroads, and this is the point of the conversation, is that what's happened in the US, and I don't know if it's happening globally yet, but the breakdown of subscription, the subscription-based models pulled content away and open up opportunities in how you deal with content, and how that becomes part of a key play for you. So we're all performance marketers, right? We're all used to the top of the funnel, correct? We all know what that is, we all know how to measure that. But are we properly measuring what happens when the funnel falls out, and how you catch that consumer along the way, and how you build brand loyalty and brand relationships through it? So I'm gonna ask Dave first, primarily because we spent a lot of time together. We're going to talk a little bit about the idea of what interruption means and how that starts to play into the plan. With Blackstone over the last, I don't know, 9 years now?
Yeah, 7.
You have to turn that one on. But, starting with truly a traditional model, direct response, long form followed by short form, moving into shorter format on television, driving urgency and seasonal urgency. Along the way, we built a program, though, on the backside of it that was all about, can you engage in content and use content as a tool to build brand loyalty and ultimately grow the business? Now, Dave, you can speak a little bit to the success and the journey and the scale at which has been achieved there.
So, to Andy's point, for us at Blackstone, the foundation was truly just the response nature and the advertising nature was just the foundation. So it was a tool that we leveraged to obviously drive awareness. We measured across all elements, right? So there was, a full measurement strategy in play. But what we quickly found, and part of the ethos of the brand really as we've kind of helped grow things, is that the food, the variety, the family, right, is best experienced via content. And so what we found is that customers, people, as they either are considering purchasing the product or have actually already purchased the product, are highly likely to want to engage with content within our social media channels before they buy or immediately after they purchase. Because what's ultimately helping them understand and drive like need and desire, right, is a need not just to own a flat top griddle. It's great, right? It's an amazing product and you can do so much on it. But what's even more important than that is there's a desire to experience food with family and friends in a backyard in an engaging social environment, right? So as we were able to unlock ways where people could be basically the heroes of their own backyard, we found that people re-engage with us. So they would purchase because and become aware of the product because of the incredible work that we were doing top of funnel across performance television, performance digital, all the way across the board. But then as people purchased and they came in and they viewed that content, they actually became sticky, because what would happen is they would see what they could do, they would become inspired, and then they purchase more products to enable that experience, because they wanted to have that experience themselves and be able to share it with friends and family.
It's really, from a perspective of value that comes out of it, how much of the accessories mix in that point once they get in that journey? And how important is the accessory sale afterwards?
It's actually one of the most important things for our relationships with our retail customers, because we drive an attachment rate anywhere between 5 and 10 items depending on what retail you're at. And so for our relationships with our retail partners, that's been a really key driver. That again, the branded content is what's played into that, because what ends up happening is you come home, you want to learn how to use it, you learn how to make a smash burger, right? They're delicious. You realize you need a burger press to do that thing. Well, we happen to make one, and it is also available at Walmart. So we are able to leverage that branded content as a way to have people go out and actually drive attachment. But that is really, really helpful, because you can only sell so many like 36-inch griddles, right? Because it's a larger good, it lasts a long time, it's a quality product. But by having these other items, but then also having the content to engage them and help people know why they need to buy them, we're able to drive lifetime value across the entire customer experience. Which is what benefits us as a company, but then it also benefits our retail partners really heavily, and what helps us become more than just a seasonal item.
So switching over to Dwayne for a minute and kind of jumping over to the most recent stuff you've been doing. You've been working a little bit in the makeup space, right?
Yeah.
How does it translate that same engagement when you start to come across and the importance of content for past the purchase sale? The second touch, the third touch, and the fourth touch with that consumer?
Yeah, I mean, we've got to continue that engagement and across all platforms. And what we're doing is trying to use YouTube a lot to create tutorials in the makeup brand. A lot of women just aren't sure of how to apply the makeup and what best way to use it. So YouTube's a great way for it. The Jerome Alexander brand was basically built on his teaching methods of how to create the look, the no makeup look. So women look for tips and tricks, and they're looking for ideas on how to take the next product and take it to another stage, and introducing new brands that follow the doctrine that Jerome has developed over years. So it's you've got to keep touching them along the way, as with the web, paid ads, social, organic is big, and just email marketing. Just keep hammering the message and stay on message, stay on brand as much as you can.
I think the democratization of how content's consumed is key to this conversation. When we think about it, like previously, it was okay. You go to your channel, you go to your cable group, and you've got the audience, and you've aggregated the audience by just placing it on different cable stations. Well, as that's now 54 million households in the U.S. and luckily stabilized, not shrinking anymore, thank God, because we don't want it to shrink anymore. Now you've got streaming applications, you've got CTV, you've got OTT, which all drive additional data opportunities for us as we kind of get into that space. You can get more insight to where to find them, but you also start to look at how you distribute content across the board from a standpoint of like what type of content you need to measure.
Because your average customer right now, your average consumer is touching anywhere between 6 and 8 social media platforms in a given month.
Right.
And remember, 12%, this is a crazy stat I learned this year, 12% of all content consumed, all video-based content is consumed on YouTube.
Yeah, it's big.
57% of that content is long format, more than 21 minutes. So the formats are getting longer in some of the social platforms. Use of how you kind of delineate the piece of content start to really matter. So Sal,
Yeah.
From a standpoint of, and we talked a little bit earlier about this, but from a standpoint of thinking about globalization in content and how you're starting to distribute products, right? Now we have to start thinking about, from a perspective of, what do you do, not just in the channels that we're placing it, in the social platforms, and YouTube and television and CTV and all that, but also in the regions and the globe, and how content and the message has to be customized internationally.
Yeah, that's a tough call because at Capital Brands we're owned by an international company based in Italy, and that was a purpose for buying us, was they wanted to globalize at least the NutriBullet brand, and we are launching our first global item in a few weeks, and it's been as I told earlier to Andy, it's been a challenge for a lot of reasons. You know, some countries are very new to making a smoothie for breakfast, for example. You know, like Italy, it's cappuccino and a cornetto. You know, like no one's making a green smoothie or a green goddess smoothie. It's just not how it works. So how do you reach that consumer? How do you reach that end user? And some of the things that we've done is a lot of in-marketing activation. It's just, you know, very old school pop-up store, you know, or pop-up in a mall, or pop-up at a sporting event or at a gym. That's where a lot of that has gone. However, you know, like the languages, the use and care guides, what do I do when I have a return it? Who do I call? That has been a bit of an interesting challenge for us, and my hope is that this launch that we're going to get through will really help us figure out how to do it the next launch, which is something that we're looking at for March on another item in another category altogether. So, but very important. You know, we think our brand, at least the NutriBullet brand, can be anywhere in the world, and that's what we believe. We stand for health and wellness, and I would like to think everybody in the world is really thinking about health and wellness, and if we can help them along that journey, that's what we want to do.
Another point we talked about earlier was the past experience with like Ninja and Shark, and really they used the tool of content, even though a lot of it was long form paid, infomercial. Can we still say that word?
I do all the time.
Are we allowed?
That's the audience.
I mean, I do.
Yeah, it depends on the audience,
Yeah.
right? You have to call it brand performance,
Not
or
the
long
agency.
form, or a show, all kinds of different ways depending on who you're speaking to, right?
Right.
But that build of they built really the brand across, and we all know this, everybody knows this story that's been in this space, that they built this brand off of a continued use of new products driving through paid access.
Yep.
A lot of the stuff they're doing now has shifted as well, and it's more broad spectrum. But talk a little bit about that journey and how powerful it can be to build the brands out.
Yeah, I mean, I was there when they were called Europro, which was great. It was a great experience for anybody to work there. And you know, we started out with 1 or 2 items, and the beauty of what we called infomercial at the time was really the data mining. You were actually talking to the consumer. You know, and we were such a data-driven organization. We loved the data. How many units did we sell per store per week? What was the inventory? All that stuff. And we got all that data from the consumer, and it actually helped create the drive to retail by channel strategizing. An accessory, you mentioned something about an accessory. Like, you know, we had this, you know, plastic accessory that, you know, you can get underneath you with your vacuum cleaner, underneath the refrigerator. Nobody goes underneath the refrigerator. And there's reasons why. But we had an accessory that did that, but it helped create and fuel new items, helped us channel strategize at retail, and it also helped us maintain that higher retail on basically long form or infomercial and everything else. It was a great tool. They've changed now, which is great. They're a $4 billion company. I was there; it was $250 million. So, But that's something that, you know, we're trying to do over at Capital Brands as well, just trying to figure that piece out too. So accessories are really important. Very, very important. We're in the commodity business. If your NutriBullet breaks, you go buy another one. That's basically it, you know. So, but you need cups, you need blades, you need all those things. Those are really important.
And Frederic, let's talk about the global perspective of it and localization of content relative to the market. Because I think when we start to think about, I would love to say we can just produce all the content at Bluewater and send it to you guys and it works. That would be a lie. Because we have to actually customize it for the audience we're talking to. Whether that's language or whether that's colloquial, like local culture or just choices that are made there. Talk a little bit about when we're taking those global type brands and how to localize them to get better performance.
Yeah, sure. We need to localize the content for sure because we have to adapt it to the country. For example, for food, when we take an American show, we have to adapt because we don't have the same way of cooking. For example, we did a long form for a pan, and we shoot it in US. And then last minute we thought, we don't have the same tabletop in France, so we don't cook on gas. We cook only on induction. So we changed everything the last minute, but we didn't thought about it. So we have to adapt the product to the country. We have to adapt the product to the target consumer, young people or older people. If we talk to them on TV or if we talk to them on TikTok, it's not the same content because it's not the same consumer. So we really have to adapt the content to all the target consumer and all the touch points we have. So if it's YouTube, it's different. It's not the same consumption of the content.
I think the key to that, though, is, and Dave, we talked about it earlier as well, but is having authentic content for the audience you're talking to. Mm-hmm. Without authenticity, it doesn't translate, and you can't build the relationship with the customer.
Yeah, I think authenticity is very, very important, and the content has to be really adapted to them, and it's like a recognition of what they are. So we need really to adapt to the country, to the people, to the consumer. So it's a lot of content to develop.
Yeah. Well, and Dave, if you want to pass that.
Yeah.
Dave, even to that market, like when we start to get down outside of the localization of global and different markets that we're in, that have language barriers and cultural barriers, even in the U.S., there's targeting inside certain demographics, and specifically, what's the right content for the streaming? How do you tell the story on the right platform the right way?
Yeah, I mean, so at Blackstone specifically and Blackstone Weber combined, like there are people that literally, I was telling Andy, it's like their whole lives are just dedicated to protecting the authenticity of the platform, right? Because it's great to have content, right? And it's great to be able to have something to show someone, but it's more important to show something that actually adds value back into their life, into what they're doing, right? And that's what actually causes people to respond to our messages, we believe, is that there is an authenticity there, but it's also an authenticity that adds value back to their everyday lives. And so, our social media team is like maniacal about making sure that the messages and the things that we're talking to people are things that they can relate to, things that matter. We've developed various personalities across our social media. We own and operate our own social media channels. We do not choose to leverage like third-party influencers to post on our behalf. We will work with influencers, but we actually will post all those in our brand-owned channels. But the reason why is because we've developed very specific personas across all of our content creators that speak to different personalities and lifestyles. So, for example, we've got someone who's sort of that hero dad who's looking to impress family and friends, but he's kind of new to cooking and trying to get into it. We have someone that fits a more culinary, sort of foodie sort of personality. We have someone that is a very busy mom, like 20-something. We also have someone who's a mom who's a little older, who likes to cook for the whole family. The point is, our family of people that represent Blackstone through YouTube and our social media channels are all very, very specifically selected to be able to talk to a specific consumer. So yes, it's very important that you create the right content to speak to the right person on the right platform. everything we do is cut multiple ways. So we shoot things not only for long form on YouTube, but we cut them to be short form so they can be re-leveraged in TikTok. They can be leveraged on YouTube Shorts. They've been used on both Instagram and on Meta. But then even more importantly, across all of those things is that it must be authentic. It must help people understand the joy of family, the joy of friends, the joy of food, and the beauty of being able to eat something that's delicious that you made yourself in your backyard.
I think the difference that you're referencing more is that difference between a brand ambassador, where it's a controlled story to some degree,
Yep.
and an influencer. So from an influencer side, Dwayne, I mean, I know certainly with Jerome, and not to just talk about that one, but
Yeah.
engaging the influencers type content, that UGC type content as a mechanism.
Yeah, it's you have to definitely watch over that. We have a group of people that we work with on a regular basis to create this UGC content, but it's got to sort of stay in the same style that Jerome has developed. I mean, Jerome wants, like I said, teach people how to apply their makeup, how to do things a certain way, and so the message has to come out right, and we don't want just anybody posting up content. They want to control it as well too. So it's important that the message stays on brand, and it, like David was saying, it has to enhance how it's going to make their life better, how it's going to improve their life, and it's hitting that tribal marketing strategy, because they buy into the brand, they buy into the beliefs, what Jerome's saying, and they want to follow the brand because they relate to it and it's relatable.
It's the relationship with the customer. I mean, most of us in this world, we're thinking about like, hey, let's drive the top funnel, drive the top funnel, drive the top funnel. But the value, and we've been blessed to be around 5 different multi-billion-dollar brand builds, right? So we've got some insight to this. The value comes in, can you cultivate that relationship with the customer over time, and can they become of great value? I know, Sal, we were talking earlier about going specifically into markets and having disruptive pieces that are experiential. It's not just, and I know Blackstone does the same. Blackstone reaches out and goes to Walmart and does pop-ups and does all these things that are gathering.
Griddle War Tour, baby.
Yes, the Griddle War Tour.
Yeah.
So the engagement happens hand to hand as well, and I think it's still key, right?
Correct. Absolutely. We just did an activation up in Canada at a couple of Canadian Tire stores. We had a smoothie truck, and the beauty of that was we were focused on one item, but it actually raised the brand sales in those stores. So which raises all ships, so to speak, and that's really why we also do what we do, because it also elevates the entire brand. We start to see that as well. So that's just one of the things too.
Yeah, that engagement definitely gives you lift. Who here on the panel is using TikTok right now? So Federic, tell me about your TikTok experience.
Okay. As a brand, Best of TV, we just opened TikTok shop because it started 3 months ago, so in France. So we said, okay, let's go, because it's completely in our DNA to have this demonstration. So it's brand new, it's interesting. We work with UGC, and they all speak to their community. So we have really, really different content regarding if it's a man, a woman, the type of product. So it comes to sales for sure. Now it's very slow because it's starting. I guess in US it's much, much more stronger. So we learn how it works, and I'm sure in the future it will be one channel very profitable in France. So just learning TikTok.
Trust me, everybody is still just learning it. I know, Dave, you guys have had great success on the TikTok audience, right?
It's the social media platform that breaks all social media platforms. Like, the rules of every other social media platform don't apply in our experience. And a lot of that is because social media or TikTok is so intent on keeping the viewer within their 4 walls, right? Where Meta and Twitter X and Instagram will allow people to leave, TikTok's keeping them right there. So even the way their algorithm works and the way that they're aggregating content out to audiences through discovery, what we're finding is that it's great to have your own posts. It's great to have things that are that you're generating yourself and are posting on your own brand handles. But one of the things that's most important is to leverage the communities that TikTok has built within their ecosystem. So through their influencer and engagement strategies that they do through their own app, right? You can leverage people and influencers in a basically an affiliate model, right? And without those elements within your strategy, your campaign strategy, it tends to fall flat because it's hard to aggregate the content out to a wide enough audience to make it stick, to drive sales on TikTok Shop. But that being said, if you can lean into that model and figure out how to navigate it and figure out how to get influencers to properly promote the brand and the product, you can have a lot of success. We've seen a lot of success selling, especially smaller, more like compact items that are easy to purchase, a little more, impulsible.
So when I was at Real Street, the head of content for Roku stands up on stage in front of a much larger audience than this and says, "We will be the home of branded entertainment. We will own. I'm planting, quote unquote, I'm planting the flag in the ground right now. We will own branded entertainment." That is not something we were hearing from a network, from a streaming distribution platform, from anything. Since then, conversations with Vizio and Walmart, Vizio's relationship. Walmart, for those of you who don't know, acquired Vizio. That means all that data that's flowing out of Vizio now is also flowing back to Walmart. So the connections that are starting to develop in this space of the shift in the way content is being distributed, it's not just on the streaming platforms. It's not just in YouTube. It's not just in social. It is everywhere. And now there's even opportunities that I look back and go back to when I started in this business, and you can put an infomercial in the air for pretty cheap. Guess what? You can put an infomercial in the air for pretty cheap again. In local.
Sure.
Because that's where the audience is now. And now on the national basis, you can create shows with brand integration. So I will tell you, when I leave here, I go back and we're producing a chainsaw carving competition series called The Carve Off that is intended to air on Discovery Network.
It's called Full Circle.
Huh?
It's called Full Circle.
It's full circle, yes.
Yeah, because the inception of soap operas was soap advertisements.
Well, Procter & Gamble is doing a soap opera right now, funding a soap opera with Procter & Gamble on the brand. So the full cycle of where this all started is coming right back around to the other side of it. So it's...
Yeah, because networks are in chaos, right? They launched a subscription-based, distribution model direct to people's houses, and they had no idea how to monetize it. And everything is being driven by content that was paid for out of the pockets of brands, right? Like, brands paid for the content through advertising. They have now lost the viewership, right? Because they basically cannibalized themselves through streaming platforms, and now they're struggling to figure out how to create new content that people want to watch. The things that people are watching were paid for by ad dollars 15 years ago. Friends, right? Big Bang Theory. These are the things that are continuing to get repeat viewership. People are going back and watching over and over and over again. So this model, right? To me, I believe that this is one of the biggest future forward steps for advertisers, is considering branded content as a part of their content strategy, right? Because it opens you up to a whole nother, you're creating content that can be consumed over and over and over again without actually having to re-spend on the media dollars.
I mean, what is Shark Tank?
Right.
It's branded entertainment.
Yeah,
Pretty much.
Great
yeah.
point.
Started with, what was that up in Canada? The Devil's Den or whatever it was?
Yeah.
Oh, the Dragon's Den.
Dragon's Den, yes.
All right, I have a question. From a performance-based side, how does that apply? Like, how do we track that?
So at Bluewater, we threw some spaghetti against the walls. What we did on that side of it. So and it stuck. So we threw Lost Den out there and put it in a syndication in a barter deal with travel-based content funded by local travel bureaus, and suddenly we're on 330 stations across the country. So how it applies coming back around is how do you build products and how do you build brands that you can build stories around that are relative? Is it as simple as what we just saw in there in the pitch room? Is it as simple as Shark Tank, where you're bringing those in there? Or are they more sophisticated things in like a category specific piece where we've got a show in negotiation now with Food Network that is literally about taking influencers and making them brand ambassadors. Well, every show is a brand opportunity for marketing inside of that and getting the ability to hit those calls to action, right? So the breakdown in where that's going is owning content, you know, from a standpoint of what, if I can get the free spot now because I produce the content, then can I plug in a product in the middle of that 2 minute? Yeah. Can I plug in one in the 60 second? Yeah. So go ahead.
But can I get outspent by a bigger brand? Like, what makes us great and makes us unique is like, you can actually validate a product with a very limited spend, right?
Yep.
Like, you run this, you get this. It's a pretty linear formula. In that case, anybody who could outspend me can likely take the content for themselves, right? So we're going to get outspent. It's
Well,
hard to test.
depends on how the deal's done. Like, we own the ad time at that point, so it's, because we made the show in our barter deal, our arrangement is we get a certain amount of ad time and the internal content inside of it. You can put calls to action in the middle of it and QR codes and tracking points back and forth, so you can validate against the overall result of what you're getting. I'm not telling you to stop making, stop making 2 minute spots and stop making infomercials. I'm not telling you that at all. Keep doing that. What I am saying is that there's a bigger portion of cultivating a client base, and it's not right for all clients. It's not right for all, for all brands. It's not right for all product marketers. Some products are just products. Let them be products. Like, market them, sell them, let them run their cycle in life, and get out before it collapses. But other things,
It's inherently measurable, right? It's inherently measurable. So you have viewership metrics that can be measured and tracked, right? To his point, you can introduce tracking mechanisms within the show, just like you would the infomercial. So unlike a traditional infomercial where you drive it straight to like just a call to action page where you could do a single transaction, you more than likely have to drive back to a show page that would connect back to various items and opportunities to buy. You can also leverage like search metrics, right? So readings of Google search trends over time can give you insights, Amazon pickup. But the point is, like, all of those things, the trick is it's not as immediately measurable. So that world where you could go and run something and know what happened the next day will still exist. It's just not going to exist as much as it used to in the past. So you're still going to have that portion of your marketing where you run a paid ad, you can get an immediate response, you run a paid search campaign, you know what the ROAS is on that click. The measurement of this is going to be more extended. It's more of we ran it and then we go back in time and read it, leveraging statistical modeling. So what I'm saying is, like, it is very, very measurable, and you will be able to inherently draw ROI back to it. I know that in our endeavors at Blackstone into this branded content world, that's one of the areas I'm very focused on right now, is figuring out ways to draw very hard lines between the investment that's happening over here and on real returns that's happening at retail and across our direct-to-consumer platforms.
what we do know from the data across multiple, remember we're an agency, we see tons of information and spend lots of money for lots of nice people around here, right? So we see a lot of insight, and what we can absolutely tell you for sure is that lift, once it comes up, it stays.
Yeah.
So that's the key. And Sal, you're nodding over there. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that one. Like that, when you get that lift and it starts to come up, there is an inflection point across multiple campaigns, multiple companies across the board, from direct response based companies to full brands with 550 SKUs to smaller groups. If you get the content engagement right, your paid performance piece peaks out, and when the content engagement meets, that's when you can hold off and level off your ad spend and still continue to have growth. But you have to invest in the content. So,
yeah, absolutely. We've experienced that, recently coming out of private equity ownership. where we weren't doing that, you know. And so what do you have to do? You got to promote. And what does that do? That costs money. What does that do? That drives margin down, that drives EBITDA down, and next thing you know, you're like, oh shoot, where the hell am I, kind of thing. So for me, you know, it's the higher we can keep the retails and, you know, and connect with the consumer, that's really the best formula is to do that. And then the other thing too is that you become a credible brand, and next thing you know, your brand can actually extend into other categories. You know, and that's when all of a sudden now you're in these other categories, and you know what? If it doesn't work, you got something to learn from that as well. So that's kind of where, you know, where we're at right now. Actually, we are trying to get at least the NutriBullet brand into. We're not going too further away from health and wellness, but we are trying to extend the brand into these new categories because we feel we have a right to be there.
Absolutely.
So, probably at the same, like when you start to see this on an international basis, you know, thinking of full funnel marketing through the journey, because you're capturing them on the front. How are you guys seeing it internationally, and about where you're dropping in that storytelling along the way, and where you're finding new points of engagement for your consumers?
In fact, we have first content on TV, so we air an infomercial. It drives to retail, and we have a specific way of selling in retail, as we have TV in-store video. So in retail, we still have the touch point of the video and the content in retail. So the consumer that saw waters on TV can find the same content in retail. So it appeals him and make him buy the product. And we have many content YouTube for sure. And another touch point is social media. So we try to have 6-7 touch points, and I think the main touch point for us is having the video in retail. So the content is in retail, which is very, very important for us.
That point of sale is so key, and I think if you take that philosophy and you spread it across all platforms, and you can't, you know, from our standpoint, we were talking about before, you can't like ask for the sale all the time in some of these models. Sometimes you just have to cultivate, you know, that audience in a very real way to make real connections, right? So before we go on, any other questions? Let me open the floor because I know we're short on time. Go ahead, Ed.
But it was when you talked about the Food Network for a moment, I was thinking, my God, there's a channel with an audience that's even older than this one. So, you know, how in a world of user-generated content, when so many of the eyeballs of anyone under 50 are being driven by these other platforms, do you manage your brand relationship with those? I mean, you talked with Blackstone about not doing that, and then I think you did talk about using TikTok in a way that does take it out of control. Yep. So, you know, do you create the kits of parts? Do you make that available freely? How do you build that affiliate network across where all those younger eyeballs are, because they're not on the Food Network?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. Part of it's a little bit of a test and learn approach, right? Because I don't think we know the full answer to that. We do know that there is a return to free television, right? Because it's free, right? And people are, there has been a decisioning fatigue that's happening across the streaming platforms, because when you're offered a palette of like 10,000 options, which one do you choose? And there's something that's easy about sitting down in front of a television, clicking on, it's like, I'm gonna watch this thing. So even though younger audiences are spending a lot of time on social media, which is true, they are returning to free TV as well. There is a free TV shift. So we think that having that media out on in local syndication will help, right? But then beyond that, yes, there is a recycle process where we can leverage all of that content across our social media platforms. We also believe that ultimately what it's going to do is it's going to drive people into our social media platforms to consume more content. So part of it isn't just about getting them to watch the show, but also because which will be available on streaming platforms. So if that's your picture, if that's your flavor, then it'll be there. But once they've watched, then we're giving them that landing space across our social to come in and re-engage with the brand. So I don't know if that answered your question directly, other than to say that like there is a test and learn approach. I don't know the answer of exactly how it's all going to play out and how exactly it'll be received, but I do believe that helping people understand the way a product can be leveraged in their lifestyle without actually just hard selling it, there is a benefit to that will be provided back to our brand over time.
And to follow that up, audience aggregation is a key piece to that. Like if we can collectively own categories and find those categories and those pieces, that's where it starts to happen, right? The interruptive model hasn't gone away, guys. Like we need the commercials, we need them running in normal programming where the eyeballs are. We need infomercials driving and distributed across to the opportunities where they're most cost effective. But when we catch them, we need to keep them, because if we engage them in our content, they buy more and they buy forever. That's what you want. You want to lift, if you don't have to capture the customer again and again and again. That's the beauty of a proper content strategy, and a content strategy that really is about conversion. You had a question?
Just back to TikTok, you said it's successful for you. How long have you been active in TikTok?
About 5 months. Not just, so we've had a social presence since 2000, but specifically in the TikTok shop space, about 3 to 4 months.
And was it instantly successful?
We had some pretty quick successes with key low cost items, sub like $40 price points kind of thing. That is the one channel like where it's a little bit counterintuitive to our model, mostly owned. Now we have partners that will create content for us and they will post on their own channels. We don't invest heavily in that model. That model is kind of like a nice side piece. It's not the focus of our strategy.
Right.
And I'll ask both you and Frederick, are you guys using more demonstration-based pieces in TikTok?
You need to take that one.
On TikTok we do some demo and we have UGC content as well. We started 3 months ago, so now it's very slow. But I guess that French population doesn't know they can buy on TikTok, so they have to learn they can buy on TikTok, and then we can reach them. But some UGCs, they have a community and they buy. So I think more content, more UGC content can lead to sales. But I think it takes time. For us, for French market, it takes time.
And don't forget that HSN just moved to Westchester, and they literally cut a deal directly with TikTok just to create just HSN content, direct selling content on TikTok. So the opportunity is there, but you do have to find an audience just like anywhere else. You have to cultivate and find an audience, and that's either comes through leveraging influencers or creating brand ambassadors that have followings and the full piece of it. Some of just the points just to remember here, right? And I was at another conference recently, and the stat came up that, it's funny that it's a stat, but consumers are 20 times more likely to remember a story than they are a fact or a stat about your product. So the storytelling behind some of this path is getting very sticky in the memory side of it. I know we try to always build that into some of the content that we're doing. How much is that? How important is that story? Dwayne, in that, from your perspective on how to really make somebody want to believe in the product.
Well, the storytelling, gets that emotional connection, and without the emotional connection, you can't sell them something. I think that, they're looking to connect, and you've got this huge opportunity. The brands on traditional television, they've got 30 seconds. They don't have time to tell the story. We've got the time to tell the story, to talk about the brand values, to talk about, all the intricacies of the brand. So, the brand stories and connection and emotional connection, that's the key, and you have to have that in your toolbox. And if you're not using the storytelling as a way to connect emotionally, then you're not gonna make the sale, and you're not gonna bring them into your world.
Does it matter the platform?
No, I don't think so. No, I think as long as it's, TikTok would be a different animal in terms of the storytelling, but I think, YouTube or some of the other platforms, you can pretty much use the same device the same way.
Coming back to your comment before, the audiences are there. You have to present the content that's right for the audience where they are. And that's not something we've traditionally done great as a direct response community, because we have a model that's really easy and it works. And you put it on television and people buy stuff. But the fundamentals haven't changed. The fundamentals of the selling moment, and Joe, you and I were talking about this earlier, the fundamentals of the selling moment is the same. Demonstrable, effective communication about the product, but there's selling content, and then there's audience building and community building content. And the two of them have to connect.
Right.
That's how you get big brand growth.
Right.
So, last chance for questions, thoughts?
For you.
Go ahead.
So, look, let me explain where I'm coming from. We sell in Japan, and localization of the commercial content is extremely important to us. There's all kinds of aspects of commercials for legal reasons or cultural reasons that have to come out.
Yep.
One of the things and this is sort of a long-winded question, because the reason why I'm always interested in hearing these panel discussions and hearing people talk is because America is always 4 or 5 years ahead of where we are. You're talking about.
I think that timeline's shortening.
It is shortening, but you're still living in my future, and you can tell me what I should do. So, one of the things we're really good at is when we need to pull something out of a commercial, we get real testimonials. We don't solicit our testimonials. They are customers who bought our product, and we don't just show them using the product. We tell their story. We tell exactly what the customer has had as a benefit, why they love the product. We try to capture their love of the product. And I could go on for hours telling you stories about some of my favorite testimonials in our shows because they're so friggin' cute and they're so real. But we actively seek out our own customers to be in our shows, so our customers become sort of the key characters in the reality show about the product they bought, right?
Yeah.
And that's the way we've always felt about it. And we're constantly renewing our shows with customer content. And a lot of this comes from outreach to customers, so we put prepaid postcards in our customer packages that they can send back their story to us. And if it's good enough, we'll grab them, we'll contact them. And 1 out of every 100 people look good on a camera. So it's pretty it's a lot of work to get these people. So you guys are talking a lot about your influencers, your user-generated content. How much of this are you pulling out of one space and putting into another?
It's a great question, John. If you have
it coming from?
what you should be doing it now, one, for sure. Why wait a year or two?
You've never worked with us.
Yeah, I've tried to a few times. It's a difficult process to move the ship over there. But the answer is yes. And I think Dwayne can also speak to this. The authentic stories inside of a long form or inside of a short form are the mover. I can tell you for sure with Jacuzzi Bathroom Model, when we have that girl squealing if you've seen the spot, and she squeals when she sees her new bathroom, and she says, "Oh my God!" Didn't matter what language I put it in. If I put it in Spanish, it worked. If I put it in English, it worked. It was the emotional connection that drove the desire for people to have a response, right? So, yes, you should be doing that. And yes, you should be, we used to talk about deconstructed long form for years. You should be deconstructing your long form for social content. There's 1,000 tools now available in AI, like the stuff that we've shot out here today. Once we put that through some of the AI pieces, there's going to be probably, I don't know, out of the 5 interviews we did, there's probably 300 clips that are relevant in short form content that are going to come out of it. Off this panel alone, there's probably 50 to 100 clips that are going to be short form content that come out of this. The fundamental shift is that you have to feed the beast.
Right.
You don't have a choice. If you're not feeding the content beast all the time, it's going to move right past you. You wonder why? Because somebody else is. And somebody else is putting that content out there they're going to find. You know why Blackstone's Blackstone and not another griddle? Because they stay true to a storytelling methodology that when anybody entered the griddle space, they found Blackstone. If they came from our top form, great. If they came from other brands we won't mention, great. But that journey is where it was at.
Well, it creates a flywheel, right? So for us, it's created a flywheel where the the creation of content has led to people consuming the content, which has led them to actually purchasing the product, which has led them to consume more content and then basically make their own content. And so that flywheel actually multiplies our investment. So yes, the investment in what we've done, it's taken time. This is not a just add water kind of strategy. It is a time-based strategy. But when it works, and it works properly, it has driven far more net gain to us than our investment in it ever could be.
And it lives forever.
Right, live us forever.
It's always there to keep finding it. Over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. And if you can get them in your funnel, if you can get them in your journey of your brand, if you can get them connected to it, then the benefits are huge. But not great for all products, John. Not all products will work. Sometimes you just gotta, some things are boring content. Which, before we get to be boring content, we should wrap this up with last questions. Want any more questions? Because I think there's still cold beer. She just looked over at me.
The hard no.
It was a hard no.
Thank you guys for participating.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us. Thank you.